thanks a lot for creating time to come and join us for this. I think it's the second last session before we can proceed to lunch. I know it's going to be one of those crazy discussions because I've had a lot of technologies talk in the morning. We've been speaking on terms of how exactly are we consuming technology, what are these emerging technological trends that our customers are also making use of in one way or another. But I come from a different world. I come from a world where, yes, we still talk technology, but I was having a conversation with some of my friends yesterday, and I was just telling them, we come from the dumb side of technology. Because I always say, when we talk data centers, it's relative and has different interpretations from one person to the other. While to one, a data center can mean an IT platform that has its computing, has its storage, and has its network infrastructure in place, and so it's actually a block. To us, when we talk data centers, we actually mean a data center as something like this. It could be something that is a source of pain because you are actually having to contend with real estate issues, or it could be something that, you have your IT network outage, and as usual, as the term always goes, you have your IT guy working on it. So the next update you get is the guy is looking at it, and he's looking at it under very strenuous conditions, like you can see in that middle picture. But of course, we also have what some of us have also done by way of making things better and making sure that what we then build is something that at least is future-proof and meets a better expectation of our customers. So it's a multi-tenant data center environment, and what we've just done is just to make sure that as opposed to you guys having that server room somewhere in your office space, or as opposed to a communication service provider struggling with the difficulty of having to put up their own very stable environment, we've built one massive environment as a data center operator. And all of you guys, we can then make use of that as a multi-tenant environment. So we then enjoy that advantage in terms of not having to build, operate, or run that data center environment. So yes, what you see on my left is actually where a lot of us are coming from, but what you see on our right is what all of us want and what all of us are doing. But there's even much better, because when we are talking about data center modernization, I had to go and really ask ChatGPT, which are these best data center designs. So what you see over there is a departure from what I was showing on the previous slide. But I was told this not a sale. I should not do any sales. Huh? So what I then opted to do was to replace what you see as that Google data center. That was actually an EADC data center with better murals. But I had to say no. Let's just make sure that we are giving it a global view. And what you see down there is not a church. Huh? What you see down there is actually a data center somewhere in Barcelona as well that hosts supercomputing infrastructure. Our customers always have to ask themselves, just like I was saying, when you have that challenge of having to have a server room, do you have your own, or do you go to an outsourced data center facility or to a multi-tenant environment? The graphs that you saw, that I'm sharing right here, give one confirmation. The very first one is that if at all, whatever happens, it's always better for you to outsource. The two reasons why it's better for you to outsource. Number one is because you will always have a technology upgrade or a technology refresh in a data center environment as well. So the same things that you guys talk about when you have to, bring in new IT infrastructure, we also have to contend with having to make sure that we are maintaining the mechanical and electrical infrastructure in the data center environments. So yes, if you have a data center for a short term, so you're looking at maybe something to the extent of maybe 2 years, then that's okay. But who builds a data center to serve them for 2 years? You'll always be building a data center to serve you somewhere in the tune of 10 years plus. And that is why, in the long term, it's a lot better that you go to an outsourced environment either way, be it in small capacity, as the two upper graphs indicate, or in even larger capacity, as the graphs indicate down there. So even if you are a hyperscale builder and you're talking of millions of data center build rollout that you need to do, it will still make sense that you actually go to an outsourced environment. This I shared because when I was having some communications with the team yesterday, there were those that always get to ask me, Dan, you guys talk about data centers, and you also talk of your own industry standards. What really is the differentiator when you're talking industry standards? So yes, Uptime Institute did an awesome job, put together the industry standards or the industry specifications in terms of how exactly do we make sure that these data centers are much resilient? How do we make sure that the power challenges that we should actually prevent are well taken care of beforehand and do not come as part of the learnings or service affecting incidences that we then have to attend to? So yes, what you see over there again, four levels of data centers. So you talk tier 1, basic capacity, it actually doesn't have any sort of redundancy. You talk of tier 2, what you're seeing on the other corner, that's actually now having some redundant components, but the redundant components are sharing a room. Or are sharing some of these physical spaces. You go a step further to a concurrently maintainable environment, which is tier 3 plus. So on the tier 3 and the tier 4, you then now have multiple paths as well. And there's always the big question that a number of customers ask, can Kenya or can we have tier 4 data centers? The answer from me, yes, you can. The only challenge we have to contend with, if at all we are to build or have a tier 4 data center, is that we have to do the change, and as opposed to us talking of utility as our main supply, then we make the generators our main supply. Now you're making generators your main supply. What does that mean? You actually have to have those generators running 24/7 as a supply path, not for you to wait so that lights go off before they can kick in. So that makes tier 4 data center environments highly costly to run, but we understand that we have got some mission critical services that for customers, they wouldn't mind really being in that kind of environment. But we are talking modernization. So I've just shown you where we are coming from and what exactly do we then pick. The trends that we've picked so far. Number one, especially our enterprise customers, the telecommunication service providers, they've been the main consumers of data center resources. And for them, what has been that power capacity that they make use of? Almost 2 to 3 kilowatts. We've got other data center operators in here, so they can actually confirm this to you. So that has been the trend, at least until now. Then the other thing is, about 5 years back, we then all had this talk of hyperscale is coming. And what did we mean by hyperscale? We actually just meant data center consumption being used a lot bigger. And who are these players that make use of that big capacity? It's the cloud service providers. So there was that view or expectation that cloud was actually going to drive use and consumption of data center capacities. And that means high energy consumption that is needed. And this high energy consumption, we must also then think of how sustainable do we make this data center. So we must make sure that we are using green energy. We must make sure that we are using all the natural resources we have in data center spaces so that we are not viewed as that wasteful entity or wasteful resource in the entire consumption of digital services. But what is currently happening? So 6 years back plus, we were saying hyperscale. This very year at CIO 100, trust you me, I've had AI talked about over and over. So what are we then saying? We are then saying that now, in as much as hyperscale and cloud consumption was going to drive demand or consumption of data centers, AI is now going to double that. And why is AI going to double or even have that in much bigger multiples? I was talking of 3 kilowatts per rack. AI is pushing us as data center operators to have data center environments that is going to host 30 kilowatt per rack. So that is the equal of 10 times of what we have. So that's a big consumption, and that's something that we then need to think about. And that's how comes having a modular build that can actually be deployed a lot quicker, the flexibility so that you can actually make sure that you're accommodating both that AI-driven capacity versus the local enterprise that we are also hosting in our spaces. And then again, demand has also changed. While customers were talking about 1 rack, 2 racks, or while they were talking about 100 racks, we are now talking about megawatts of data center that is also pre-configured. Yeah? So when a cloud service provider says they're launching or having an availability zone or a region coming into Kenya or East Africa, we must appreciate that is something that is pre-configured, and we have to make sure that we have a deep understanding how much power they consume, the security requirement that they need, and the operational excellence that they also expect of the data center operator. Of course, when you talk sustainability, what do we talk about, or how do we make sure that we are sustainable or efficient? We look at how we can be effective on using power. That's why we look at PUE or power usage effectiveness. But even newer acronyms have come in. And what you see there as WUE, that's water usage effectiveness. So again, a measure of how much water you're using in a data center vis-a-vis the total IT load. The last one there is carbon emissions. So carbon usage effectiveness as well. It measures how much of carbon is being emitted from the data center, or how much carbon is being emitted from the waste that we're also having taking out of the data center. And it needs to be as low as possible. What we want to do is to make sure that we are not misusing natural resources, but let's also not be carbon emitters. So yes, that's how comes we are talking all these good programs that our data center operators are having to adopt. How do we make sure that we are demonstrating in the market, or is this something that we're just doing for the sake of it? Like I've just told you, our customers expect us to be green as well. So that green procurement that we have to do to make sure that whatever we are installing to support our data center environments is green, it's driven by our customer expectations. Some of them are having to actually compensate for carbon emissions that they've had for years long. Some of them also have very strict green commitments that they have with the likes of LED or the green grid for that matter. So that expectation of our customers is something that we have to achieve. In some way, we also have to make sure that we are doing everything right to meet the expectations of our financial service providers or our financiers. So we have financiers like IFC for Africa data centers, and they push us out to make sure that we are adopting green energy building certifications or best practices in whatever we are doing. So yes, this is a slide to just demonstrate to you how we have made sure that we are committed to being green. So as Africa data centers, if there's one thing I always take pride in is while we have operations in South Africa, in West Africa, that's what you see by JHB1. That's our Johannesburg facility, our Cape Town facility. What you see as NBO1 is what we are really much proud of as the East African team. That's our Nairobi facility. And the most illuminating thing on that is that when you talk Nairobi, as usual, our utility is already 90% green. Then on top of it, what have we done? We've also added our own solar energy. So we are ultimately pushing in a lot of green energy in terms of our East African operation. And that is a big opportunity for us to make sure that we are convincing the hyperscalers or this AI capacity that Kenya is the right destination for this. Yes. I think there was a gentleman who talked about NVIDIA. So when you are talking about that AI computing and the capacity that you are talking about, that whole exponential growth in terms of the heat requirement or the energy requirement by tenfold, it's courtesy of us moving from CPUs to GPUs or graphic processing units like the NVIDIA guys are doing, so that we can support AI or high-performance computing, for that matter. So what we have to do is to make sure that we know what exactly is needed for this kind of deployments to be in our environments. I'm happy to say that, in partnership with one of the cloud service providers globally, we're actually going to most likely be in that very map that you see in terms of data center liquid cooling, because we have to meet their requirements for very dense cooling for a specific workload that cannot be, sort of served by traditional cooling methods. So yes, we have this technology with us. But in as much as we have it, we must also make sure that we can support existing customers. So as ADC, we are happy to have you guys because you're already the players that are making use of what we call our ready scale. So that is the data center as it is. You don't have to really do any customization. But the next two, the flex scale and the super scale, we have to have conversations with our customers because there's some little bit of customization or variation of the product that we have to meet. This just talks to what exactly we also do in terms of making sure that we are not just viewed as a co-location service provider, but also, a channel through which we can support our cloud service providers to make sure that they can actually supply their services to the consumers, which in this case is our local enterprise market. As ADC or as any data center would also relate, it's not just power and cooling. We also need connectivity. So this is also a critical element. The more connected your region is, the more connected the country is, the more conducive it is for telecommunication service providers to provide their services, the much easier it is for us to host these hyperscalers, this AI kind of capacity. And that's how comes, as ADC, I was just looking at the numbers. We've done much well. So in East Africa, for a long time, we've been saying we've got over 50 network service providers. That has moved to twofold by now. So we actually are hosting over 100 network service providers in a very carrier-neutral manner. Of course, we've got a relationship with Liquid Intelligent Technologies. But yes, when it comes to how we are supporting our ecosystem players, we are very neutral at that. So 100 players, 100 network service providers whom we have. And of course, we are also hosting the local internet exchange point, courtesy of our partnership with Tespoke and KXP. If there was one thing that I would want to make sure we captured from this whole engagement that we are having, the technology exists, the skills are there. You know, this is a testament, courtesy of all this good talk that we've had. So we all have the skills, the technology is there. The data center operators are also doing their level best to make sure that we can raise investments and build hyperscale capacity. So while that technology is there, I think for me, the message I'm having or the challenge I have for this audience today, let there not be a focus or a doubt on whether we have the capacity. We do have it. Let the focus be more on how exactly are we going to make use of AI to address Africa's needs. Let it be how we can actually drive digital adoption and prevent digital disruption. So for me, that is the most compelling message that I wanted to just make sure that I share. Technology is something that we are not going to create afresh, so we can always tap from what is already done out there. But we must be the owners of the solutions or the agenda that we have to meet our needs. Guys, that will really be it from me in terms of what ADC does. I think I wouldn't want to assume this. So we form part of Cassava Technologies. And Cassava Technologies, yes, has two arms of businesses, the infrastructure side and the digital services side. From the data center perspective, we fall under the digital infrastructure side. So you'll see Liquid Networks, you'll see Dataport, and you'll see Africa Data Centers. That's what we do. But we also have the services side. Why? Because we do not want to be left out in the whole digital transformation journey, because that's what our customers are doing, and we also have to do it. Guys, thanks a lot. This is our footprint when you are looking at our Pan-African presence. I already indicated we are present in Nairobi, DRC. I think we host you. Co-location is our core business. We have a team that you can easily reach out to. I don't know whether the team is here, but we have a stand, so feel free to pass by so we can have our conversations. We've already done our modular designs so that we can make it quicker to deploy our data center facilities. And I think this is what I wanted to show you, because that green energy commitment that we do have, the photos you see are real-time images from our data center facility in Nairobi. That's really it from my end. I think at this point in time, ready to take any questions. Bugwa, happy to have you on board. And thanks a lot for giving me the audience, guys. Santini.